I'm Cameron, 29 years old, and I want to share the story of a day that changed everything for me. On September 8th, 2022, I was involved in an explosion at SpaceX in Texas. I had been a propulsion systems engineer for 6 years, fresh out of college, brimming with dreams of taking humanity to Mars. My wife Elena and I had just bought our first home in Brownsville, and we were hoping to start our family soon. I always believed I was part of something monumental, something that would shift the course of our species. That morning, like any other, started early. I woke up around 5 a.m., sipped my coffee, and kissed Elena goodbye while she was still asleep. I drove the 30 minutes to Starbase, excited for what the day would bring. We were finalizing tests on the Raptor engines for our upcoming Mars mission. Everything felt routine, checks and briefings, a familiar rhythm. But then, while I was deep in the engine bay, disaster struck. We were conducting a pressure test on the fuel lines, and suddenly, something went horribly wrong. The explosion that followed was enormous, completely taking me by surprise. One moment I was focused on my tablet, reading pressure levels, and the next moment everything went white. Oddly enough, I didn't lose consciousness immediately. I was engulfed in excruciating heat, pinned down by an overwhelming weight on my chest. Breathing became impossible. In that moment, my thoughts drifted to Elena. I had promised her I would be careful, and just the night before we had been discussing baby names. Then, everything turned dark. What came next was unlike anything I had imagined about life or death. The pain disappeared, and for the first time, there was sheer silence. The suffocating weight lifted, and I felt remarkably light, as if I were floating. That realization hit me hard. I was not in my body anymore. Gazing down, I saw my lifeless form trapped beneath twisted metal and concrete, blood surrounding me. People were rushing over, shouting my name, but their voices echoed distantly. I tried to yell back, to reassure them I was okay, but I couldn't make a sound. It was then that I noticed a tunnel of light before me, a real tunnel, not the cliched version you see in movies. This light felt alive, embracing me with warmth and strength beyond anything I've ever known. Drawn toward it, I felt an inexplicable sense of peace and acceptance. For the very first time in my life, I welcomed the unknown. I found myself in a place of complete tranquility, and suddenly, there he was, Jesus. He stood in this brilliant light, and I have to say, he didn't resemble anything like the images we've grown up with in art and movies. It was as if he was radiating a profound love that enveloped me. I could directly feel this warmth washing over me. His eyes were a deep, soulful brown, brimming with compassion, which triggered a flood of tears, not out of sadness, but overwhelming joy and relief. Cameron, he called my name. His voice was a soothing blend, like honey mixed with the rumble of thunder. Every part of me recognized that voice, as if it were imprinted in my soul, even though I had never heard it before. "I've been waiting to show you something." I tried to respond, but my words choked in my throat. I finally managed to whisper, "Lord, I don't understand what's happening." His smile was ineffable, filled with more love than I had ever experienced in my life combined. "You've been working tirelessly to help humanity reach Mars," he spoke gently, "but you're unaware of the true purpose behind it." Confused, I asked, "What do you mean?" That's when he revealed things that overturned everything I thought I knew. With a simple wave of his hand, we were suddenly transported into what looked like a vast conference room. But honestly, this was no ordinary space. The walls were made from a dark, glossy material that seemed to absorb the very light around us. At an enormous obsidian table sat individuals in sharp suits. Some were famous leaders and tech billionaires I recognized, while others had an otherworldly appearance, beings that felt distinctly non-human. "This is what they refer to as the Council," Jesus explained softly. "They've been planning this for decades." Horror washed over me as I listened to the conversations about Mars colonization. It wasn't the same hopeful discussions I'd participated in at SpaceX. They weren't discussing backup plans for humanity or the pursuit of scientific breakthroughs. No, they were strategizing escape routes. One of the wealthiest men in the world declared, "The awakening is accelerating faster than we anticipated. More people are turning to prayer, seeking truth. We need to be off-planet before the final harvest." I shuddered as one of the non-human beings leaned forward, its completely black eyes piercing through me. Mars will serve as our sanctuary when the king returns. From there, we can continue our operations and rebuild our influence once everything settles. I felt a wave of sickness rise within me. Jesus, what are they discussing? What does this awakening and harvest mean? He placed his hand reassuringly on my shoulder, instantly restoring my calm. Marcus, there's a spiritual war happening that most people remain oblivious to. I want to share something extraordinary that happened to me, something that changed the way I view the world. You see, I had an experience that took me beyond my physical existence, and during that time, I encountered profound truths about our reality, especially concerning a well-known company, SpaceX. In this experience, I could see things that usually remain hidden from us. I witnessed dark entities surrounding the SpaceX facility, influencing everything from the engineers' decisions to the executives' thoughts. These beings, aware that their time is running out, have manipulated human ambition and technology as part of a larger escape plan. While we might think that the Mars project aims to secure a brighter future for humanity, the truth is much darker. Jesus showed me that it was never about helping us. These entities were using the project as a means to establish a refuge for themselves. As I looked deeper, I was shown ominous sights on Mars. Instead of habitats designed for human colonists, I saw vast underground facilities being constructed, seemingly by robotic systems sent there long before any announcements were made. These places were not for research as we might believe, but preparations for something far more sinister, spiritual warfare on a cosmic scale. My heart sank as I realized the magnitude of the deception. I couldn't help but protest. After all, I thought we were doing good work, contributing to humanity's future. With immense compassion, Jesus reassured me that my intentions had been genuine and that many people working on these projects shared that same purity of heart. Yet, he also revealed how cunning the enemy truly was. They prey on our noblest desires, the urge to explore, to innovate, to survive, twisting those impulses for their own ends. Then came an overwhelming wave of sorrow. I saw my wife, Elena, in our kitchen, praying for me each morning before I headed to work. Her whispered prayers for protection surrounded me like an invisible shield, saving me from deeper involvement in their deception. I realized that her simple, faithful requests were what kept me searching for truth, rather than just advancement. That love, that hope, was why I stood with Jesus instead of being ensnared by those dark plans. Feeling the weight of this revelation, I began to sob. I had always believed that my success stemmed from my own skills and efforts, but the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. My achievements were not just my own, they were a result of her prayers and my genuine desire to seek the truth. But as I listened closer, the atmosphere shifted. Jesus grew serious, warning me that the enemy's plans were accelerating. They could sense that more people were awakening to the spiritual truths around them. There was a frantic urgency in their actions. The most influential minds were being targeted, pulled away from Earth before the spiritual awakening could reach its full power. What I once viewed as a bright future was entwined with a much darker purpose, and I understood now that I had a critical role to play in resisting that darkness. After my experience, I felt compelled to share what I had seen. You see, I was given a vision, one that shook me to my core. The truth about Mars and its colonization plan was far more sinister than anyone could imagine. They were saying it would take years, decades even, but the reality was that the first wave was set to launch in just a couple of years. Instead of scientists and adventurers paving the way, it would be the elite, those who had been conspiring with darker forces all along. During this revelation, Jesus spoke to me with a calm authority, saying, "They think they can escape my oversight, that traveling through space somehow distances them from my power. They forget that I am the creator of all things. There is no corner of the universe where I am absent." As I listened, I was taken on a breathtaking journey. What I saw of Mars was astonishing. It wasn't the barren wasteland portrayed by scientists. Instead, it was once a lively planet. I witnessed the remnants of a significant civilization that had succumbed to the same temptations that plague us today, desperately seeking refuge on other worlds when the time of reckoning arrived. The rusty ochre dust that blankets Mars carries more weight than mere iron oxide, It symbolizes the downfall of a world that chose rebellion over seeking forgiveness. This cycle has played out before, Jesus said with a note of sadness. Across the universe, worlds have risen and fallen based on their choices, whether to serve themselves or serve me. Mars was once vibrant and full of life, much like Earth, but they too chose the wrong path. I was overwhelmed, grappling with the realization that the Mars mission was built upon lies. Not entirely, mind you. He explained that while there would be genuine discoveries and noble individuals genuinely aiming to expand humanity's horizons, the hidden motive was to evade accountability. It's an attempt to establish a new order away from my reach, he pointed out. In my desperation, I asked him what I could do to halt this course. Gripping my hands, he infused me with a surge of power that felt electric and loving all at once. "You have a purpose, Marcus," he said, "but stopping the mission isn't it. Your mission is to enlighten others about the truth, to help them realize that true safety lies not in fleeing to other celestial bodies, but in returning to me." "But who will believe me?" I protested, my uncertainty growing. "I'm just an engineer. They'll think I'm out of my mind." With a gentle smile, he reminded me, "Many thought Noah was insane. The prophets were dismissed too. I don't expect everyone to believe, Marcus." I had an experience that truly changed my perspective on life. You see, I was shown something that I'll carry with me forever. I watched as prayer warriors emerged from every corner of the globe, people I'd never met, yet their dedication was palpable. They had been praying for ages, hoping for hidden truths to come to light. In my living room, I could picture Elena's prayer group huddled together each Tuesday evening. Their intention? To intercede for those high up who were lost in deception. In a completely different part of the world, I saw children in Africa, lifting their voices in prayer, asking for the space workers to find Jesus. And there were elderly women in quaint little rural churches, fervently asking God to shield the young men dealing with perilous technology. What struck me the most was the realization that they were praying for me, even though they likely didn't know my name. Jesus conveyed that their prayers were aimed at my protection and awakening, and somehow those prayers paved the way for me to be in that moment with him. I felt so small, so humble, and incredibly grateful. For so long, I'd thought I was charting my own path, but in reality, I was being held up by the prayers of people I didn't even know. Then, Jesus revealed something else to me. The explosion I had encountered wasn't a mere accident. The enemy wanted to end my life because my role in unveiling the truth is critical. But my angels had intervened. They diverted the worst of the impact. What should have obliterated me simply brought me to the brink of death, just so I could have this conversation. As I looked around, I noticed the space we were in felt both expansive and intimate, brightly illuminated yet comfortable, like a cherished home. Jesus gestured, explaining that this was only the threshold. He spoke of his Father's house, where rooms had been prepared for those who love him. His invitation resonated deeply. He wanted nothing more than to welcome me home. I could feel the overwhelming sense of peace, love, and rest surrounding me. The temptation to stay was almost unbearable. Imagine never having to worry again, being free from doubt, fear, or pain. I envisioned a life where I wouldn't have to see Alina tear up when I returned home weighed down by work stress. It felt like paradise, a beautiful escape. Yet my heart ached at the thought of Alina being left alone, probably receiving news right then that would shatter her heart. And I thought about my colleagues at SpaceX, people who genuinely believed they were contributing to humanity's future. What would happen to the children who would inherit a world where influential figures had abandoned Earth for their personal safety? I realized I needed to go back. Tears streamed down my face as I voiced my thoughts. Jesus nodded, understanding the weight of my mission ahead. Every day I can feel the weight of what I carry, and I promise you this, I'm not alone. Each time someone suggests I've lost my mind, there's this whisper inside me, reminding me of truths I've encountered. When doubts creep in about what I've experienced, I try to recall a moment of clarity when everything shifted. Picture this. I was there, and it was as if someone placed a hand on my forehead, and suddenly, everything became clear. I began to see how the technology we were developing at SpaceX could actually serve goodness rather than just an escape. It dawned on me that our passion for exploring the cosmos didn't have to be tied to fleeing from God. The truth can liberate us, even when we feel engulfed in deception. As I reflected on it, I remembered the profound words of Jesus. He said that even as the light around us waned, those who seek to flee to the farthest reaches of space, such as Mars or beyond, cannot ever escape him. He will return to establish his kingdom, and it will stretch across the cosmos, making every knee bow, not just here on Earth, but on distant worlds as well. The last words I recall were a powerful reminder. Tell them that their hope isn't in becoming a multiplanetary species, but rather in becoming a redeemed one. And then, it all faded into darkness. When I finally woke up, there were machines beeping loudly in the background, and I could hear Elena weeping softly. My chest felt as if it had been crushed, almost like a truck had hit me. The scene around me was chaotic, with doctors and nurses bustling about, throwing around terms like impossible and no brain damage after being clinically dead for 17 minutes. They were ordering more tests, clearly astonished. Elena was gripping my hands so tightly that I worried her fingers might snap mine. Her face was swollen and red from crying, hair tousled, but to me, she was the most beautiful sight. "Marcus," she whispered, trembling, "they said you were gone." In that moment, I squeezed her hand gently but firmly. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." But I wasn't the same man who'd kissed her goodbye that morning. How could I be? Having met Jesus and glimpsed beyond the veil of reality, I realized that everything I had been striving for was underpinned by a lie. Over the next week, the doctors kept me in the hospital, running tests ad nauseum, attempting to unravel the mystery of someone returning from death without any lingering cognitive issues, just some broken ribs and bruised organs that were healing at a remarkable pace. I held back from telling them about my encounter with Jesus at first. I knew they would dismiss it as mere hallucinations from oxygen deprivation. Yet, deep down, Elena sensed that something within me had irrevocably changed. I remember the moment she looked at me, her eyes narrowing slightly as she remarked that something about me had changed. Something in my gaze was different now. It was on the third night in that hospital bed when I finally opened up to her. I revealed everything: the council, the truth behind the colonization of Mars, and the heavy warning Jesus had shared with me, along with the mission he entrusted to my care. Elena absorbed every word I spoke, listening intently without a single interruption. When I finished, a hush fell over us. She stayed quiet for what felt like an eternity, and then finally said something that made my heart swell. I knew then that I had chosen the right partner for life. "I believe you," she stated simply. It turned out she had been praying for 2 long years, asking God to reveal the real situation behind SpaceX. She confessed she could sense the darkness surrounding the place each time I returned home, and in that instant I realized just how powerful and protective her prayers had been. The day I left the hospital, I made my decision clear. I quit SpaceX. Formally, I said it was to allow myself time to heal from my physical injuries. But underneath, I understood I could no longer contribute to building escape pods for fallen angels. After I left, some of my old colleagues checked in on me, worried that I had lost my grip on reality. A few even listened to my story and began to ask their own questions. One guy, David, approached me with a confession. He'd been dreaming of dark figures lurking in the facility for months, but he thought it was just stress getting to him. As I grappled with this new reality, it became increasingly difficult to live with what I now knew. Every time I came across news about Mars missions or advancements in space exploration, I felt a heavy weight settle in my chest. I recognized that there are genuinely good-hearted people working on these projects, striving to help humanity. Yet I also understood the darker motivations at play behind the scenes. Elena and I found solace in a small church, where the pastor actually preached about spiritual warfare and the end times. None of that sensationalist nonsense, but honest biblical teachings about the battle between good and evil. I shared my testimony there, and it was heartwarming to see the congregation receive it with open hearts. What surprised me the most was how profoundly my relationship with God evolved. Before my near-death experience, I believed in Jesus, but it was more like having an insurance policy, something I considered likely true, a good idea to embrace. Now it feels so different. I talk to him throughout my day as if he's right there beside me, because, in essence, he is. Prayer has transformed for me. It's no longer just a ritual I perform before meals. It's become a battleground. Each morning, Alina and I pray for the truth to be revealed. I've been reflecting a lot on what happened to me during my near-death experience, and I feel compelled to share what I encountered. It was profound. Jesus showed me so much. I'm not entirely sure what I'm meant to do with this knowledge yet, but I sense its significance. Perhaps one day I'll turn it into a book or start speaking at churches. Or maybe I'll continue to share my experience with individuals, one at a time. What I've realized is that the elite think they have a way out. They believe they can escape to Mars when things on Earth spiral downward, imagining they can create a new civilization free from divine oversight. They're mistaken, though. Jesus is the sovereign of the whole universe, not just our little planet. There isn't a place they can flee where his power doesn't extend. The real concern we should have isn't whether we'll become a multi-planetary species, but if we'll redeem ourselves as a species. Will we turn back to our Creator before it's too late, or will we repeat the mistakes that led to the downfall of Mars? I've been given this second chance to spread this crucial message, a clear mission unlike many others who have had similar experiences. We need to shine a light on the hidden agendas lurking underneath the surface. Deception surrounds us. People must understand that our hope doesn't lie in fleeing to other planets, but in the one who made them all. To anyone in the space industry listening to this, my intention is not to oppose exploration or scientific progress. I simply oppose using these noble endeavors as a cover for the world's most wicked individuals. I urge you to ask questions, seek clarity, and be mindful of who drives these agendas and their true motives. Look, I get it. 6 months ago, I would have dismissed this as crazy too, but now I can't unsee what I've seen. Jesus is real, and the spiritual conflict we're in is genuine. The secret planning happening in boardrooms is more sinister than most people can fathom. Yet, here's the reassuring truth I want to share. In the end, God prevails. I've caught a glimpse of his kingdom, and it holds a beauty far beyond anything we could ever create on Mars or any other celestial body. He is not taken aback by their escape plans, and he remains unfazed. I've learned a lot about what's truly important, especially in these uncertain times. You know, we've seen immense advancements in technology, and many people think that safety is found in escaping to another planet. But the real refuge, the true safety net, lies in turning towards the one who loves us deeply, even enough to lay down his life. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of becoming a spacefaring civilization, reaching for the stars, yet our real hope isn't found up there. It rests in being part of something much greater, the eternal kingdom of God. It's funny how the world is fixated on a countdown, but let me tell you, this countdown isn't for humans reaching Mars. It's a countdown to the magnificent return of the King. Imagine that day when every knee bows, not just here on Earth, but on Mars and throughout the entire universe. It's going to be incredible. In that moment, everything will shift, and you realize that trusting in human plans is nothing compared to having faith in God's purpose. His plans are solid and guaranteed to succeed, no matter what.